Hi, it's Will. Another episode of Chewing the Channel. This week I have Mr. Adam Wilson, director, co-founder of IPEX Technology Limited. I'm really excited for this one. So when we met, obviously I threw you over a LinkedIn request. You hate LinkedIn and don't really use it, which is unusual. You know, as my 27,000 followers I've got, it's a bit disappointing, but
I just got a vacuous navel-gazing pit of despair, isn't it, really? As people like now post about their birthday cakes and their 5K runs. To be fair, I didn't know you before that because we've done a bit of business elsewhere.
Yeah, and what I was really interested in, why I was really keen for you to come on, is your journey to business owner has been via a sales route. IPEX Technology, great business. And what I'm interested in is that kind of journey, because you started at enterprise.
Yeah.
That is a very, very tough. You're on call, aren't you? If you need to drive a car.
I was working 60-hour, 70-hour weeks.
And that's your first job after doing drama and music.
But I wanted to earn money. I'd been to university. I'd led a pretty good lifestyle at university. I was absolutely skint. I'd had enough of tapping off my parents. I wanted to earn some money. And they pitched this meritocracy model of career progression and
be a branch manager,
success
move up
that I totally bought into. And I'm like, right, I'm off. I need a bit of success now. I need a bit of...
didn't want to go travelling or anything?
I was skint. And I wasn't going to tap any more money. I was done with the bank of mum and dad. I was in my overdraft to the nth degree. It wasn't an option. It'll something now that'll come maybe when I finish this business and travel in a different way. I was very jealous of a lot of my friends and people who were doing that sort of stuff. But the reality is I made a different choice and it started and off it went. So,
and who was the chap you talked about in terms of that you reconnected with? Because one of the things that I want to kind of pull out when we talk that was really interesting when we were talking to Johnny Ray in terms of his journey. There's certain figures during his career where, and Johnny won't mind me saying this, there were certain people that backed him and he would say, I don't know why they did that. They saw something in me and that gave me a support person who I still speak to now that helps with
they're mentors, things. Aren't they?
Yeah.
They're guides and the people you look up to, people sometimes you argue with. There's a few at different steps in your careers. There's some that you still like, there's some that you absolutely don't like, but you still learn off those people you don't like as well. Some of my toughest lessons have been off people who would not be on my Christmas card list, but with the benefit of hindsight, it doesn't make them wrong. You know, when you look back at it a bit more dispassionately, you take the emotion out of it. Matt Johnson, one of them, there's a few others as well as you go through. And, you know, those people become really important in your tough times when you were struggling. Because, you get salespeople who say they were good from day one. I don't think there's a salesperson in the world who's good from day one or is consistently good for their whole career. We all have dips and troughs and challenges within that.
Apart from me, but I know what you're saying. There's probably,
apart from you.
Yeah, that's definitely not true.
Yeah.
How did you get into sales then? Because obviously enterprise is a sales element, but you're in the kitchen, you're making the tea, you're serving.
I was selling advertising for a magazine in Liverpool in my second year of university where I decided not to go home, and I was getting paid £500-600 cash a week for telesales.
That's like £1 million as a student.
It was amazingly, it went every week.
I bet. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It was, the offices were above a strip club and a bar. You finished at 12 o'clock on a Friday. It was good times.
Saturday,
yeah, good times. But and I worked and I did advertising, selling. And before that, I'd always had an inkling. I could always talk to people. I could always do bits and pieces of that. And that's when I got selling. And that's when I realised there was a bit of money to be earned. I don't think, quite earned in quite that same sort of way, because that was just such an enormous amount of money to me at that point. I did that for about 12 to 16 weeks and I had nothing to show for it at the end of it, which made me think I was going to be a proper salesman, wasn't I?
Yeah, that's a very much a sales life.
Yeah, because it comes in, it goes back out, and it puts you under the pressure to go and do it again. And that's a big part of, one thing I've learned is that, and I'd go for my two business partners as well, we're always at our very, very best when we're under pressure. And I think people don't necessarily give the craft of a salesperson necessarily the right level of respect. And I had a sales director at EE called Andy Summerfield who said, well, it's no luck. It's not something you just follow. Sales is a science. You know, it's a craft. It's something that you build up and put a lot into to develop a skill set where you can go and repeat it and you can read what needs to be done. You can take the positive, the right steps. And I think as in any industry, but even more so in sales, to get to the top of that and to be really, really good at it and be considered really good, you know, there's a lot of education in yourself, a lot of investment of time, and a lot of disappointment, a lot of failure that you've got to go and bounce back from and react to ensure you're good at it. We set up a cold calling team about a year or two into our business, which nearly killed us as a business because it was such an unbelievable cash burn along with some sales reps, and the reality of the amount of resilience that people didn't have to be able to graft through the amount of failure and rejection to get the one lead, to get the one win, especially when you're maybe recruiting out of a social media generation, an on-demand generation who haven't really had to wait for too much. I think that taught us an enormous about not just the craft and the education behind a salesperson, but also that sort of resilience and willpower that you've got to have. They're not magicians. We tried to create a sales team. Our marketing was diabolical. Our lead gen engine didn't work. So we put bums on seats and said, well, go on then. Go and ring people and make some business.
Each salesperson will get 10 sales.
They've all come out of somewhere, potentially where they've gone, well, to be fair, everyone else have been, get a lead here, I get a bit of that, I get a bit of that. And then you go, well, what's your budget for that? The reality of the cash burn that was totally and utterly unsustainable for us as a startup with no investment in it. It was too much money month after month because we worked out that it was over £30,000, £35,000 a salesperson before you started really to get a return. If you look at it, it's going to take them 3, 4, 5 months to make any sort of tangible, meaningful sales. By the time you've built a pipeline, the reality of the sales cycle and what we sell, buying some leads in, facilitating their wages and expenses over that period, their recruitment fees. It was a huge, huge amount of money and continues to be so. So it's a real balancing act in terms of how far you can stretch that and how you can roll that dice.
The question, you know, for me is obviously you progressed within some of the larger businesses. As a salesperson, you're running a team at BT before you started your own business with your business partners. At what point in your journey were you kind of thinking, do you know what, the corporate or the working for someone else is great? Actually, I think there's a different way for me. At what point did that kind of manifest itself?
As with many things in my life, quite quick decisions, really. I think if EE hadn't been bought by BT, there's a chance this may never have happened. That was a great place to work. Well remunerated. I think the culture was fantastic.
Was known for fantastic culture,
I had a brilliant boss at the time, worked in a brilliant team. Was doing well. That sort of outlook of that corporate ladder was very, very much on, I think, and I had ambitions and all the rest of it. I wasn't necessarily very good at pulling the party line. I was a bit outspoken. That was something I was going to have to work on. And not saying something to get themselves into bother or to upset someone who's really important, making jokes at the wrong time, all that sort of stuff. But I went into BT when he was bought. And for me, that was the fundamental opposite of where I'd been at EE. And for many, many people who I worked with who'd come out of that EE culture.
Two different cultures, isn't it?
I worked for a really challenging boss in the first instance, who I have since, reflected on that period and learned a hell of a lot from. But I decided to move on from working for him after about 18 months. And I took a job in the distribution channel where I looked after some of the direct partners and some of the mobile distribution folks, some of the common names. And I went to an event that they were putting on and I saw some of the dealers and some of the people who own the dealers there. And I just thought, blimey heck, this can't be that difficult. No offense to all those dealers who might be watching.
No, yeah.
Because it is difficult, actually. And I was wrong. And two of my mates who we were in the same management team and also were in a similar state of disillusionment. I mean, well, why don't we ever go together? Because if we all left, we had a really good friendship. And if one went to O2, we're going to go to a tier 1, O2, Virgin, wherever you go. You then, with BT getting, with the emergence of 5G, with the fibre switch off, with cloud voice and all that sort of stuff, and hosted voice becoming even more, prevalent and the switches off and all that sort of stuff happening, everybody was going to transform because BT then had every part of it in their network. I thought, well, I'm just going to jump into someone else's transformation strategy or someone else's bad strategy, and I may as well follow my own bad strategy, which is effectively what we did.
Well, it's almost you've got a personal bit in terms of the work environment, but then at the same time, you have a market that's moving and evolving and starting to gather pace. You obviously had the difficulties with the banks and things like that, and we're kind of coming out of that. And
are we?
Well, we might be going back into that. I'm talking 2016.
Is your crystal ball pissed?
But then you've got that market issue. So you three, an office, or were you working from
we got
home
an office
straight away?
We got an office because we were spread out a bit, but you needed that camaraderie together. There's no point sat at home in our own little spare rooms, was there? Not calling people because there was no accountability, and you didn't really want to. You take a step back in your career, 15 years, you're cold calling, you're on the phones. Yeah, you're sweating your little black book, but you basically went back 15 years in your career. Well, I've got to sell some stuff. Leadership became secondary, but we'd all come out of that leadership role, so we had a strategic desire to grow it, which was, I suppose, humorously is built around the strategic desire to stop cold calling. I'm now 7 years in, and I still haven't worked out a way where you stop cold calling, and so we built our first team, which was a telesales team. And in fairness, we built that one off Indeed, and we got 2 or 3 really, really good staff out of that. Some have gone on since then and have started to build really, really good sales careers. And I think what you got into there is that for all the success that you wanted and all your ambitions that you had, building your culture to support and develop people was the most important part of what you did. Because without that, there were no results. And all there was necessarily was even higher staff churn. Because in that Indeed recruitment marketplace of people coming in into telesales and going back to sales as a skill, there was a lot of grifters, and you had to work that out quickly, and you had to move those people on.
So what was your first products you started to move into then with IPEX when you were kind of in the room together?
So we thought, because we weren't, I've got more of a technical mindset than my 2 business partners. But we thought we'd just resell someone's hosted phone system, and we thought we'd resell effectively a distributed mobile through, many of the different vendors out there who offer that sort of distribution model. We were restricted with some because of the amounts of deposits that had to be put down in terms of it, because we'd self-funded our business. We've never had any external capital, but we got one in. But we quickly shifted into wholesale because we had our own phone system fitted that we got, and the people they sent in to fit it made our office look like MR5 had gone in to search for bugs. It was cables out the roof. We just popped out for lunch rather. They went, yeah, your LAN doesn't work. And we thought, we've got no business if we send someone like this in to do that. We've got no chance. And so we had to fundamentally shift it and go. And that's where we built a different way of doing it. And we went wholesale, hired an engineer, got our own billing platform, and started to build it that way out of scratch.
Because you're experiencing what other wholesalers were dealing with, and you're kind of saying, well, actually, this is the sales part again, this is an angle here because that service is crap.
Well, without service, what's your value?
Do we want to be known as that? And
how do you compete? If you're going to sell someone else's product, arguably on a worse price book because of your starting point compared to, and name one out. Let's chuck out someone like the Focus Group, for example, who were massive then, and you look at their buying power on something like Horizon, you look at my buying power Horizon, and I'm going in against them and their associated dealers a lot of time. How am I ever going to differentiate on Horizon with those? And I'm not, am I? So you quickly work out that not just because you want to differentiate your brand and your business and all the rest of it, but also because you've got to survive and you've got to make some money. Yeah. Because without winning some business and we haven't got any money, we're not going to get very far. So we had to work out quite quickly how to do that.
Overheads, you've got all that stuff at the start.
And we've all got kids, and we've all got mortgages, we've all got families, and we've got to live. And so those decisions, and that's what I say, you at your sharpest when you're under pressure. We were under pressure. We had to make some really important strategic decisions. And that's where being 3 of us became really important, because if me and you are in a business, you have your idea, I have mine. Whose is better and how do you decide? There's a lot of one-way compromise coming from that. But with 3, it's always a 2v1. And so we quickly established that if it's 2v1, that was the decision. And so that enabled, we never fell out, really. The odd bicker here and there, we never fought. One of the biggest successes is we remain good friends. And that, I think, has been fundamental to it.
Because that's it's amazing, but then it's surprising as well. Because a lot of time, with the pressures and the stress and things like that,
you don't have that 1v1 debate, though. Yeah.
So you've always had the 3
we make a decision as a 3. If 2 carry it, the decision's carried.
Did you have that meeting before you kind of said, you know,
it just naturally came out, didn't it? Because you go, well, 2 of us think that, 1 of us think so, and we quickly said, I don't remember specifically having the conversation, but I'm sure we did. We said, well, if we have a majority, then the majority carries, and sometimes that majority's been wrong, but that's life, and you carry on and you reflect on your decisions and you make new ones. But that, I think, is that, and I think you've got to look at the 3 as well. We've got 3 different personality traits as well. Paul's a bit more quieter and considered. You know, Dan's really positive and energy and gregarious, and then you got me who's a bit more operational. And so we had all of that sort of, we had each bit counterbalancing each other, and we had it. And I think that accidentally that's ended up being a huge help for us. You know, we haven't got 3 of the same types of people.
Because sometimes you can have, if you have the same sort of people, and you're, you were saying before, you want to go. If you see something, you'll move quickly. If you had all of everyone the same as you, there might be mistakes made.
3 of me, I don't think it'd be much fun.
3, yeah. Well, no. it'd
be lively. Yeah,
it'd be lively.
So no.
And then at what point? So obviously you started doing the Indeed stuff. When did you start thinking we've got something here? We're developing the sort of selling on value and service, because we see that as a differentiator. We're starting to, you know, recruit people. Was there a point in that stage where you thought this could have real legs? We
don't sit here now and say we're smashing it. This thing's got real legs. I don't think we're in that mindset at all. You know, I think any business that turns over £10 million a year is still, you know, utterly overwhelmed with cash flow management and some of the challenges that come with that, unless you've got, you know, outside investment from, you know, some of the funds that are out there and you choose to go down that route, but then you've got your other pressures elsewhere. I think when we saw traction with customers on our message, and we call it that, because the new business marketplace is, you know, that lead generation is quite challenging. Just before COVID, we were in the final stages of winning a hospital, and we were 18 months old. And that for me was, you know, that for me was staggering. The fact that we were in this, we could do it, and we have done it. And we've done it now for 5 years, and we've done a brilliant job of it. But those conversations I didn't expect to be happening. You go, and we won a couple of other quite significant businesses, and that's where you go, you know, we've got something here. People are buying into what we're creating and what we're doing. And
but have you still got that kind of, for want of a better description, fear in terms of, because you've grown it from, you're always thinking we need to keep evolving, keep growing.
We've got 20 staff now, of which still not many of them are salespeople, and we're responsible for their rents and wages and livelihoods. So that is extremely sobering at any point, because you've got to make sure that the reality is that you're sharp on your strategy and you're close to what you're doing to make sure that it could run. And I think any business owner would tell you it could run away with you like that. It could run away with you so quickly. You take your eye off the cash flow, you take your eye off your forecasting, your sales forecasting, your business growth plans, and suddenly you can turn around and go, where's it gone?
Some of these are really interesting points, because a lot of our partners may be 1 person, 2 people. They've started a business, or they're starting to recruit and grow from 5 people to maybe 10, 12, and these sort of decisions can be pretty.
So yeah, we did all of that, and I will absolutely attest and say that furlough saved our business. And without furlough, I'm not sure we had one, because it is an unprecedented period of time for a business that was 18 months old, with where we'd overscaled it, and we're reliant on upfront revenues and new business sales to have effectively we only traded in 5 months of that year. Yeah. So 7 months, 7 non-trading months. And without the ability for our staff to maintain their wages, where we didn't have to lay them off. We did have to lay some off, but we kept the core of the group. We were able to come back in and set a new strategy, and we came out of that a better business. Leaner, more driven, more focused in terms of where we're going to go, a much more defined strategy. I think it was probably a little bit too general, a bit scattergun before that. And that necessity of survival and the risk we had. We recently did a big trip with our wives and partners, because we've come out of that phase and our houses are no longer at risk. Whereas probably our wives and partners didn't know that they were necessarily at risk, but they definitely were. And so it was a bit rewarding to say, well, you know, well done everybody.
But it's not just it's not just the business owners. it's your whole support structure around it
Yeah,
that
of course,
are there
yeah.
to help
I
you.
generally don't take that work stuff home, but the reality of that period was, going back to that point of we're at the best when we're under pressure, we were under pressure then for 3.5 years in terms of strategy. I think if you speak to my supply chain, yourself probably excluded, I've had to have really difficult conversations with all of them. There've been significant disagreements at the point, because my mentality has been protect myself, protect my business. Some of those suppliers we've fallen out with a bit. Some of them we've still got really good relationships and we've come through it. Yeah. But you're into survival mode. Now, we have turned the volume down on that a little bit, but I don't think that will ever leave, because, you discover during those periods how quickly it changes, and suddenly everything you see forthcoming, we could have another virus from China come, and you've got to go, and we had no plan for that. I don't think I'd really heard the word pandemic particularly.
No, it was.
It was, and so that was, and it was lovely weather. I had kids not in school, having a brilliant time. My wife not really teaching. I had friends on furlough, having a great bit of time off. And I'm on the phone to all sorts of people for 6 hours a day. And it was
18 months
and
into
that
your
sales
business.
stuff you talk about, and that skill you built, was then used in supplier management.
Was it from a supplier point of view with that period? Was it interesting in terms of how you interacted with how certain suppliers were?
We had some brilliant ones, absolutely brilliant ones, and we had some shockers. And I'm not going to go into the details of who's who on because I don't think that's necessarily fair. But I think it's really easy when you're chasing your targets and we're chasing our targets to wield the power of your contract in your small print. I think that's a really easy thing to do. I think what's much more difficult is to compromise. And we were always, I think, willing to compromise to a point, but some of the stuff that was put forward to us was so utterly restrictive. It felt like at points people were trying to wield the power they had in that situation to almost to steal a march, to overcommit us into something, to drive us down a path that was going to fundamentally damage the growth prospects and our ability to come out of it, because they might get a bit more, rather than really trying to stay close to the bigger picture. And I think dealing with account managers and their managers, and perhaps their director as well, this mantra of how people hide behind commercial, hide behind legal, the faceless person over there that says no. And I think when you're talking about some of this thing, and I get everyone's got to manage it through, and you've got to get what you need and other bits and pieces, but I think you've got to look at that and go, we're all people at the end of the day. We came out of the period, we've come out of it, everybody got what they needed. We came out of it really, really well. Our customers who traded with us that period deserve a big drink off us at different points. We still have. I just think those. If I ever went into that side of things again, you have to try and see both sides of the coin.
Is that one of the things you've learned with your business now, in terms of really investing, understanding a situation and not kind of...
You manage your suppliers like you manage your customers in a way. They're partners, yeah, of course, but you've got to maintain those relationships. They've got to have as much clarity as you can give, yeah, to understand everything that's going on, yeah, because some of the cash flow challenges that you can have are real, and they've got to come on a journey, because effectively that person sometimes is going to bat for you. It happens much less regularly now, but the reality of that situation was over that next couple of years, that was the thing. And the longer, because you could get a bit of fatigue with that sort of stuff, but the longer you go on with that, the more difficult that stuff becomes. And if you don't speak to them, the next conversation is worse. It's like a complaining customer. You're not doing your job well. I'm not taking that call. I'm not taking that. And the next one comes and it feels even worse, doesn't it? And the next one comes and you've got to do that.
We see that in wholesale with the perception. So yeah, the perception of my industry is pretty poor in terms of responsiveness and things. And a lot of time I use the analogy of a little flame, and they just leave it, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they just do that. And I read a book about, I think, eating a frog, which is weird.
Why would you read that?
I know, that's how sad I am. And it was just, those sort of jobs, and I had it from cold calling. You probably did way back when. You have your key ones you want to talk to because they've said I want to call back, but then there's the cold ones, really cold. And I would always, at the start, push those right to the bottom. I didn't deal with them kind of way back when. And then you kind of learn as you kind of go. Sometimes that difficult conversation's the first one you have to start a process of working on it. It sounds like you did with suppliers during COVID. You could have
still doing it, yeah. Still
you
talking
could quite
to
easily have gone, it's COVID, just deal with it. I'll speak to you in a bit. But you engage and you talk. This is the journey we're going to go on. This is, where we are.
Yeah. There's, I think, built into that, there's things like professional pride, isn't there? There's, an insane amount of risk, an insane amount of what ifs. And then you had second COVID, which is January. That was even worse because there was a bit of goodwill in first COVID, and it was all new. We're all, let's support each other, protect the NHS, say that. Second COVID, January onwards, was brutal because it was like, well, this might be the new normal, so let's go on with it. And you're trying to sell because that's, people aren't Googling hosted telephones and we're popping up at the top. They're not finding us. We sort of try and find people to sell to generate, I'm extremely proud of how we got through that situation, and grew our revenues unbelievably. After year one, we dropped to 1 million, and then we bounced back the second year to 1.7 million. And then since then, we're looking to exit this year at 4.5 million. So, and that period of, let's call it trauma in its more brutal form, sets us up to be able to go and say, well, we built the platform and the foundations to grow the business on.
Do you think you'd be where you are now if you'd not gone through that?
No, I don't think we would have been.
Because it kind of gives you that thinking space, I suppose, in terms of your strategy with you through.
The strategy was wrong going into it. We were over leveraging on people. We were growing things. We had too many salespeople. We made some system choices that were wrong. We were effectively a bit over indexed, and it put a really sharp focus on what we're investing in versus what we're returning and the choices behind that. And, we doubled our revenue and effectively stayed on the same staff. So we invested in those people. We had brilliant people still with us, fantastic staff. And we continued to invest in those people. And it got to very recently where we've done a spate of hiring now because it has got a little bit too much. And they're progressing their careers and they need to do different things. So we've once again gone and reinvested now in staff. But it's amazing what you can do with the people you've got. And we invested in that culture and we invested in ourselves with our staff doing it together.
One of the things I think it's a really good point now in terms of the culture and I've known your business for a while and a lot of the people have been, there throughout the journey and they've grown as your business has grown. Some of the challenges businesses have, or I see from owners, is sometimes they struggle that no one will give a shit about your business as much as you do because it's your baby, you own it. And then hiring people, sometimes there can be a disconnect because, well, why aren't you staying late till 10 o'clock to sort this customer because it's my business? And have you ever had those sort of issues?
Well, we've had one member of staff who we've commented on it who is a bit of a workaholic, who's maybe saved other people from having that. And, we've used that, but we've rewarded her accordingly.
Are you guys able to separate yourselves
that's her choice. Well, to be fair, when our job was to sell things to people, and then we invested in people to onboard it and look after it, and our job was to sell it. And it's that analogy of the pub landlord. If the beer's bad, it's on the landlord. He's not, and we're sort of that sort of thing, aren't we? We're looking after it, but we're putting great people into great roles that they're good at to be able to do it. We have a mantra where, we don't live to work, we work to live, and your life is really, really important to go and enjoy your time and do the things that you want to do. So we encourage people to try and, work really hard and give us what you need to. But if you need something back, then, work with your teammates and get it back and get that bit of flexibility and that bit of time. That comes with maturity as well for people and experience who can handle that sort of responsibility, flexible working. It's not, but on the whole, it works really well. And I think one thing that the enterprise model did get right at the outset of my career was that idea of a meritocracy and that idea that you come in, you learn the business and you progress into new roles. And we have done more of that than rather recruiting ready-made people because it's too expensive sometimes to do that at that point. But also if you bring in people in who learn the culture and learn that business and then you give them a pathway and an opportunity to grow, then you build loyalty and you build that belief and trust in that what you're offering them to be able to go and do, they will achieve that. I think things like your 6-month reviews and your pay reviews and your PDPs and all that stuff that goes with it, we have done that. And that's been, I remember when I was in sales and I used to see a PDP and you go, what is that? I'm not doing that. I've just got to sell stuff, haven't I? But I think when you're in a non-sales role, it becomes really, really important because, you know, it's a different set of targets, a different set of motivations.
100%. And I think because obviously we touched on in terms of the value sell, if you've got people that have done that journey within your business and they're fully bought into the culture, they've done different things, they're progressing, I'd want someone like that in front of a prospect every day of the week versus, you know, someone that's been in their role.
Great. So I've got two great examples I can give you. One, our finance manager, she was going to go and be a Nolan nanny, which and didn't like that when she got down to it, whatever reasons that was. But she got A's in maths and economics, a really bright girl. She was networked into us through my old boss actually, and she now runs our finance. And she was hugely investable to be able to do that with. We had another guy who came in as a grad from Manchester in biomedical science, chopping up cadavers, right? And he came in to do telesales. His graft wasn't in question, but he just couldn't do it. Some people, it's just not for them, is it? But he was a clever boy. And we got him into service during COVID. And then he's like, I probably did a couple of years in engineering, and now he runs our major bids and our pre-sales, and he's absolutely mustard. So that's two great examples of seeing qualities in people that you can utilize rather than just let it walk out the door. You know, talent walking out the door, I think, which we've not had too much of, but it is the most disappointing thing because, you know, that's the investment of yourself and your time and your training, that shared journey. So
it's really clear you give a shit about your people in terms of...
I've worked in places where people didn't give a shit about me. Yeah. So I know what that feels like on the flip side of it, or the perception is they didn't give a shit about me. And, you know, when I was struggling before, did I get much help? No, not necessarily, not a great deal of help, but I might have offered my mentors and other bits of people off the business. No, not really. And I think that's, you know, ultimately it's your responsibility as an individual, but there are points, you know, I remember those senior salespeople who came on a meeting with me and helped me close a deal when I was under a bit of pressure. You know, I remember those people, I think, and we try and be those people to those who give it back to us to help them on that journey, and whatever that is, whether that's...
And because you're not the... if you have an opinion, you share it, which is not a bad thing. I assume within your business, if someone says, I don't, you know, done respectfully, disagree with, that's like not a problem.
Feedback is how do you learn and develop if you don't have a mechanism for feedback? And we're trying to do more and more of that because we've got, you know, we're the biggest we've ever been staff-wise, and we've got some brilliant people in the room with brilliant ideas, but this business only moves on to the next stage and gives them the opportunity to move together. Sounds a bit tweed on it and a bit, but it is, because if you've got everyone else pulling that direction, you know, so if they've got ideas and they've got things that they think they can make it better, well, let's discuss it and let's work out and let's test it and see if it does. And it gives that empowerment to people that their voice a little bit does matter, that they've got a say in terms of, so they're coming and going, yeah, I've got to do all this stuff. They're my hygiene factors. That's my stuff I've got to do my job. But on top of that, I've got these things that I can do. These things are a bit more interesting. So a great example of that is the first line service work. First line service is, hello, respond to a ticket, first response, hand it to a techie 2, manage the communication flow. You know, you do that for a year. I'm going to argue that by the time you've done that for a year, your motivation might be dropping because there's not a great deal to that work. So how do we build more into that role and develop you within that role? So perhaps then you can go on and maybe be an account manager.
It's like the sales philosophy, isn't it? Andy, when we were talking to him last week, the cold calling job in his eyes was an eat shit role in terms of you'd succeed at that, it gives you core values, etc. But it's not a role that you want to do forever, really. You want to progress maybe to field sales, account management.
Yeah, well, we started doing it though. You see the rep coming in his BMW 3 Series, like, well, one of them. Yeah, you know, yeah. And it's also other things that go around. You go, oh, he's going out now, or she's going out now, and they're going out and like going out, and I'm sat here working. You know. Yeah, so it's aspiration, isn't it? Yeah, it's about going, what's next for me? And I think your staff have to have a what's next for them.
What's next for you then?
We've just done a significant piece of recruitment this year where we're probably going to do 4.2 to 4.5 million this fiscal year. I think in the next 12 months from here, we'll do 5. So we've recruited for 5 million. We've gone and said, to take us there, we've done this. So we've got a lot of work in terms of developing our management team, who are brilliant, but are new and so need a lot of support. So I'm doing quite a bit in that, and I enjoy that sort of stuff. We've still got to sell and bring in new customers, and we've still got work to do on our marketing plan to try and improve that and make that more effective. It's not necessarily as effective as we want it to be. And then it's working on sort of the all-round strategy in terms of growth and next steps, and focusing on increasing our recursive revenue, as you'll know very well.
And then for you personally, you might not answer this, but I've got to ask it. Is it, exit in a few years, live on an island, or do you see this as just you love it and off you go? I don't know which island it'll be. Can
you imagine me on an island, digging holes everywhere, falling off my head?
Or are you that sort of personality that?
I think I'm always going to work somehow. I think because I enjoy it and other bits and pieces. I'm 41, so I'm not particularly old. And I think if you look at exiting, we've had offers already. We had offers.
I was going to say, it wouldn't surprise me.
He offers the amount of people who want to buy telecoms companies and all the rest of it, not necessarily pay a good price for them, but they're in the market for them, and base buying and base building. You could put a LinkedIn post out in 5 minutes and have loads of people offers. That's not necessarily a challenge. We want to grow this and grow it significantly from where it is today, with the major challenge of still knowing our customers, still keeping that high quality of service, and still absolutely delivering something that is better than 98% of the competition out there, which I believe we do. And I think that represents a massive challenge over the next 5 to 10 years.
And let's be honest as well, as much as, you'll get offers there could be acquisitions for you guys to look at in the future. We've done one this year.
Yeah, that was interesting. We'll see how that goes. But going back, that's an incredibly competitive market. The risk for investment companies in comms and internet, people will keep their phone numbers on and people will keep their internet running, because it is the lifeblood of their business. So if you're an investor going, where do I go that's fairly recession proof and where I've got, pretty good guarantees of returns, as you know yourselves in terms of what you do and some of the other pension funds that invest in connectivity companies, absolutely. It's a really, really, really low risk, lucrative returns market for them. And I think the acquisition market is interesting, but we've been into it already and it is quite challenging. And our business we don't operate in that small end. We're not quite in that big end. We do work in that mid-market section, where customers have problems that we fix, and that brings tangible value. So I think, I think acquiring in that space is you need bigger pockets than perhaps, where we'd be willing to spend. I think we could do it ourselves by winning new customers.
Well, you mentioned one company before that acquires, I think, one every week pretty much.
All the time.
There's businesses with whole floors of people researching acquisitions. And
we get these agencies that come and say, we'll do all your research for you and do it, and you put us on this retainer for this, that, and the other. There you go. But, we've still got 20 staff. We've still got staff who are really busy. It's almost that you need a whole kind of, and onboarding them and getting those customers. There's so much infrastructure that goes around that we've done we've done it. I think it's been okay. I don't think it's been a rip-roaring success, but it's early days yet. And I think you got to look at what we're really good at. What we're really good at is winning new customers, providing really innovative solutions and sorting that out. Going back to your previous point, we have set up an IT arm of our business as well, which focuses on our smaller customers. That's something that I'm very much focused on getting growing as well, which is a new revenue stream for us that grows that sort of growth. Because if we look after people's internet and we look after their network and we look after their phones, why aren't we looking after their IT?
100%.
Yeah.
And I see businesses that do the IT, but they don't do the other things. And it's exactly the same point.
Well, they're going to come take my phones and they're going to take other bits, aren't they? So
it makes customers sticky as well.
It does,
It's really interesting. We're kind of coming towards the end. I think loads of takeouts, but the two things I think are fundamental for me personally is it's interesting a sales journey going into then probably having discussions as a business owner that a salesperson typically wouldn't have, budgets and all those sort of things. And then focusing on that niche quite early of service is key. This is our differentiator to market. But then not just that on its own, you've also gone, well, actually our people are fundamental to that in terms of their support and developing them, because ultimately they're touching our customers in a non-Jimmy Savile way.
they're the engine room.
You can't have the two, in my opinion, you can't have a customer first approach without your people being
they're the engine room. They're the people.
Yeah.
They are the lifeblood of the business. They're the engine room. The people who are doing the vast majority of that customer centric role. I think the final takeaway, if I was doing it again, is that a lot of people who can come in, who perhaps are from a sales background, have a great product, have a great idea, have a great strategy, and what's your business plan? You know, the amount of people in my first year goes, well, what's your exit plan? I'm like, just started. I haven't even thought about an exit plan. Still in the survival plan, thanks. You've got to sell, and you've got to be able to go and you've got to be able to create an opportunity.
Yeah, you
sell it. And the reality of being salespeople was that fortunately we could do that. And I think I see so many people who come in with their great ideas and go, oh, sell. Don't people just buy it? No, you have to go and sell it.
That's really, I mean, that's the big thing, because you three could quite easily have sat in a room for 6 months strategizing, and whereas with that sales element, you will know we need to start trading. We need to start, and there'll be bits we learn. There'll be things we do right, things we do wrong, and that's kind of flowed through. It's really clear in terms of your business that the sales element is fundamental.
Yeah, and we tried to build this sales team. Ultimately, we were the 3 best sellers, so it made sense just to invest in ourselves. We're going at that now a little bit differently, and we're going to get some, but we're going to be much more moderate and much tighter on how we drive people to it. But yeah, it's a good journey. Pleased to be on it. It's taught me a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're having dinner. 3. Who would be your 3 guests? I'm interested in this one.
Yeah. Who would be my 3 guests?
I'm assuming Michael Knighton is not one of them. For anyone who doesn't know, Adam is a big Carlisle United supporter.
I did want to stop off his pub in Newark. He was a dreamer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But no, Big Mike wouldn't be there. However, one Mike, I'd have Mike Tyson. Yeah, because he's a little bit wacky, a little bit nuts, and he'd just have absolutely brilliant stories to tell.
Yeah. I think that's a unique one.
There wouldn't be a moment of silence with him there.
I'd be worried with him. I'd say something wrong, so I'd have to have someone in between, but he would be phenomenal.
You wouldn't say it wrong, but all right today.
Well, so far.
Winston Churchill, yeah. Any man who can do what he did, yeah. And I think, again, that's a lively table. Iron Mike and Winston.
Do you know what? I got asked this question the other day. Winston Churchill was one of mine. I actually have a Winston Churchill tattoo.
Yeah. Get it out for the cameras.
Unfortunately, I can't. It's on my incredible bicep here. But, I don't want to intimidate you.
No,
reflecting that.
Not with these tiny arms.
These guns don't come out that often.
And who would be my 3rd? Who would be my 3rd? Well.
Ronaldinho.
Yeah.
That is a lively table.
It's a good table. Yeah.
So you've got Winston in the middle with beef Wellington.
Yeah.
Having a glass of champagne. You got Mike Tyson with some sort of marijuana food.
Yeah. And Ronaldinho's not eating either. Yeah.
No, he's not eating. He's probably bringing some guests himself as well. So
yeah. I like a party. I like all that. So that would be a good table. I think we'd be a dinner for about 30 minutes and then we'll be off out.
I love their answers though, because they're unique characters. Like every one of those individually, if there's a room full of people, the room are gravitating towards that individual.
Yeah. Because you need to understand why Ronaldinho was in prison for 12 months as well, because that story still hasn't fully come out. No. So we need to understand what that is.
He's someplace on Burnley, doesn't he? Or
something like that, yeah. But he was arguably one of the greatest player of the modern generation. You can talk about your Zidanes and your Scholes and lots of others, but no one, him.
Yeah, but behind Andy Booth, he's up there.
Andy Booth.
He's definitely
Andy
up
Booth.
there.
Well, actually, if we're going there, Jimmy Glass, done. Podcast out.
Thank you so much, IPEX. A great business, and I'm proud to have you on.
Oh,
so
thanks.
Thank you.
No, it's been great to be here. It's been brilliant. I didn't know what to expect. I just thought you were short, but no, it's been a good hustle.
Hopefully you've enjoyed that. Adam is a top bloke. I think there's a lot to take away for businesses and individuals where you're either starting a business and you're looking to grow it and those sort of challenges you can get, or as a salesperson in terms of your career trajectory, how you can be going one way and you can be bounced to the other area, kind of sliding doors moments, which I think is really interesting. And then also, just because I love it, the fundamental sales approach and that need to sell. So hopefully a lot of take homes for you, and hope you enjoyed it. Remember, Chewing the Channel is you can be found on all the resources, so we'll share those details, so please like and subscribe. Obviously IPEX Technology will have details on there, so if you want to check that business out. Thank you very much.